The mess hall of the Galactic Union Academy was loud. It smelled like steamed vegetables and ozone. Beings from a dozen different star systems sat together, their strange voices mixing in the air. There were the Cathari, a species of tall feline-like warriors with purple skin. There were the short, rocky Grom, who quietly chewed on mineral biscuits. And then there was Cadet Ryan. Stone. He was the only human. Ryan sat alone at a metal table in the corner. He was Ambassadorial Student 004, a test case. He was not small for a human. But in this room, he was tiny. He was soft. He had no claws, no scales, no thick armor skin. He looked, as many students whispered, like prey. He kept his head down, eating his food. He just had to get through lunch. Then he had power systems class. He was good at that. He just had to survive the social parts. A shadow fell over his table. "Well, look what it is," a voice purred. The little soft skin. Ryan did not have to look up. He knew the voice. It was Xyla. She was a Cathari, and she was the alpha of her class. She was tall, muscular, and had sharp yellow eyes like a cat. She and her friends stood around his table, blocking out the light. "Hello, Xyla," Ryan said, not looking up. "I'm just trying to eat." "Eat?" Xyla laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. Her friends laughed with her. "It is so funny to watch you. You use a fork. You chew your food so ... weakly." She reached out with one long clawed finger and poked Ryan in the shoulder. He tensed but did not react. "So soft," she said to her friends. "I do not understand how his species is not extinct. He is like a... what is the word? A pet." This got more laughter. Ryan's hand tightened on his fork. He could feel his face getting hot. "I am not a pet. Please just leave me alone." "Ah," Xyla cooed, her voice dripping with mockery. "The pet is talking." She wanted a reaction. She always wanted a reaction. She loved to prove she was the strongest. She saw Ryan as a toy. He was smart in class, but physically, he was a joke. "On my world," Xyla said, her grin widening, "when we find a small, weak creature, we play with it. And when we like it, we claim it." She looked at her friends. "I think I will claim this human. He is my pet now." Before Ryan could even stand up, Xyla moved. She was fast, a purple blur. She did not hit him. She did not hurt him. She pushed him. Ryan fell back onto the long bench seat. In the same second, Xyla swung her long leg over and sat on him. She was not using her full weight. If she did, she would have broken his ribs. But she was heavy enough. Her body pinned him completely. Her legs were on either side of his chest, and she held his arms down with her powerful thighs. He was completely trapped. The entire mess hall exploded in laughter. Even the giant Grom at the back table made a deep, chuckling sound. Ryan was pinned. He was humiliated. Xyla leaned down, her face just inches from his. Her cat-like eyes were bright with amusement. "See, you are mine now, little human. You are so easy to control. What will you do? Squeak for me? Squeak, little pet." Ryan's world shrank. All he could feel was her weight on his chest. He could not get a full breath. He pushed against her. It was like pushing against a wall of stone. She was impossibly strong. He thrashed, but he could not move. "He is trying to fight," one of her friends yelled, crying with laughter. "It is so cute," Xyla said, laughing hard. Ryan stopped fighting. He went completely, perfectly still. The panic was rising. He was trapped. He was being held down. He could not breathe. The laughter was everywhere. It was too loud. His heart was hammering. Thump, thump, thump. It was so fast it felt like a drum. Xyla noticed he stopped moving. "Oh, did I break him? Did the little pet faint?" She leaned in closer to look at his face. "Hello, are you?" The smile on her face froze. Ryan's eyes were wide open. But he was not looking at her. He was looking through her. His face was pale, covered in sweat. His teeth were clenched so hard that his jaw muscles stood out. A sound came from his throat. It was not a word. It was a low, quiet, vibrating sound. A growl. The laughter in the mess hall started to die down. The students closest to them could feel a change in the air. What? What is that? Xyla whispered. Her smile was gone. This was not part of the joke. Get ... Ryan said. The word was so quiet, she barely heard it. What did you? Get ... off. Xyla felt a sharp, sudden pain in her leg. She looked down. Ryan's hand, which had been trapped, was now clamped onto her thigh. His grip was not like hers. It was not a muscle grip. It was a tendon grip. His fingers were like steel cables. His soft fingernails were digging into her tough purple skin, so hard that she could feel pain. Let go, she hissed, trying to pull her leg away. But he would not let go. She felt the muscles in his body change. He was not just pushing. He was coiling. He was like a metal spring being wound tighter and tighter. And then she saw his eyes again. They were not scared. They were not angry. They were empty. They were the eyes of an animal that was no longer thinking. It was only reacting. A cold, ancient fear shot through Xyla. It was a feeling her ancestors knew. The fear of a predator that does not stop. The fear of something that will chew its own leg off to escape a trap. He is ... double quotes. One of her friends started to say, he is. Shaking. Ryan was vibrating. His whole body was trembling with a new strange energy. It was adrenaline. It was the human fight or flight response. He was trapped, and flight was not an option. So his body chose fight. He sucked in a deep, ragged breath that sounded like a scream. Xyla never saw it coming. He did not push her. He exploded. It was not a move of skill. It was a desperate, primal, violent surge of pure survival instinct. He roared, a real human roar of terror and rage, and threw his entire body upward. Xyla weighed twice as much as he did. It should not have been possible. But the joke had triggered something deep in his DNA. His brain had turned off, and his primal ancestors had taken over. He bucked, and his head slammed into Xyla's chin. Her teeth snapped shut, and pain shot through her jaw. At the same second, he used his one free hand to claw at her face. His other hand was still crushing her leg. She was so surprised, her balance was off. The combination of the headbutt, the pain in her leg, and the sheer animal panic in his attack made her recoil. She fell backward off the bench, crashing onto the hard floor. The mess hall was completely silent. Ryan scrambled to his feet. He was breathing like he had run a mile. His chair was overturned. He was bleeding from his lip. He stood there, shaking, his fists clenched, his eyes still wide and wild. He was facing Xyla, who was on the floor, holding her jaw. She looked up at him. She was not laughing. She was in shock. The pet was standing over her. And he looked ready to kill. The silence in the mess hall was absolute. It was heavier than the gravity on a high G world. Every eye was locked on the two cadets. Xyla was on the floor, her hand on her throbbing jaw. Her yellow cat eyes were wide, not with anger, but with a new, cold emotion, shock. She saw the blood on her fingers from where her own teeth had cut her lip. She had been thrown. She, a Cathari warrior, had been thrown by a human. Ryan stood over her. He was trembling violently, as if he were freezing. His chest heaved with deep, ragged breaths. His eyes were not the eyes of the quiet cadet from 5 minutes ago. They were wide, unfocused, and darting around the room, seeing threats in every shadow. He was still clenched, his hands in bloody claws, ready to fight the entire room. Cadet Stone! Stand down! The voice was like a thunderclap. It cut through the tension. Professor Vrel, the Academy's combat instructor, strode into the room. He was a Xylos, a being made of crystalline structures, and he was over 10 feet tall. He never ran. He never shouted. But he was shouting now. Ryan's head snapped toward the new sound. He took a step back, crouching slightly, a low growl still rumbling in his chest. He did not seem to recognize his teacher. "Stone, listen to my voice," Vrel said, his voice becoming calmer, but firm. "You are safe. The threat is over. You are at the Academy. You are safe. Breathe." Xyla's friends, who had been frozen, finally moved to help her up. She pushed their hands away, her eyes never leaving Ryan. She was watching this transformation. The pet was gone. In his place was an animal. I don't. Ryan stammered. The wild look in his eyes began to fade. The adrenaline was draining away, leaving him cold and empty. He looked at his hands. He saw his own blood and Xyla's purple blood mixed on his knuckles. His eyes rolled back and his legs gave out. He crumpled to the floor, unconscious. When Ryan woke up, the first thing he felt was a dull ache in his head. The second was the soft, sterile sheets of the medical bay. "He is awake," a calm voice said. Ryan opened his eyes. Professor Vrel was standing by his bed, his crystalline arms folded. "How do you feel, cadet?" What happened?" Ryan whispered. His throat was sore. "Xyla, did I hurt her?" "Centurion Xyla is in the next room," Vrel said, using her formal title. "She has a bruised jaw and several deep scratches. She will be fine. The more important question is, what happened to you?" I don't know," Ryan said, shame flooding his face. She sat on me. I couldn't breathe. I panicked. I blacked out." "You did not black out, Cadet Stone," Vrel said, his voice serious. "You reacted." Vrel walked to the window. "When your species was added to the Union, we read the files. We knew of your biological quirks. But data is not the same as seeing it, quirk. Sir, I attacked her. I should be expelled." "No," Vrel said. "You were provoked. You were physically restrained and threatened, even if it was a joke. Your body's most primitive instinct took over. Humans call it hysterical strength, a surge of adrenaline released by your glands that turns off pain, turns off rational thought, and gives you, for a few seconds, impossible power. It is a survival mechanism. It is the instinct of a creature that is used to being prey, and has learned to fight back with impossible desperation." Ryan stared at his own hands. "Primal rage." "Precisely," Vrel said. "A Xylos would shatter. A Grom would go dormant. A Cathari would use skill. A human explodes. You did not fight her, Cadet. Your ancestors did." A medical droid entered, followed by Xyla. Her face was stern. Her jaw had a dark purple bruise. She dismissed the droid. She walked to Ryan's bed and stood there, just looking at him. Ryan tensed, expecting her to yell at him. Instead, she spoke, her voice low. "Professor Vrel explained it to me. Xyla, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to." "Be quiet," she interrupted, but not unkindly. "You did not do anything." "It did. I felt it." She touched her bruised jaw. "I have sparred with warriors twice my size. I have never felt strength like that. It was not Cathari strength. It was chaotic. It was furious." She leaned in, and her yellow eyes were no longer mocking. They were filled with a burning, intense curiosity. "At first," she said, "I thought you were weak. A soft skin. A joke. I was wrong." "I am weak," Ryan said. "That wasn't me. It was just a chemical reaction." "That was you," Xyla insisted, her voice dropping to a whisper. It is inside you. It is a weapon you do not control. You are not a pet. You are a hidden bomb. Ryan did not know what to say. The entire dynamic between them had shattered and reformed into something new. The rules of my people are clear, Xyla said, standing up straight. I was dominant, something in you, defeated me. You humiliated me. The joke is over. Ryan's heart sank. So you hate me. Hate you? Xyla looked confused. No, I do not understand you. And on my world, when we find something we do not understand, we must test it. We must break it down to see how it works. She turned to leave. Rest, human. You are no longer a joke. You are now a problem. She walked out of the room. Professor Vrel sighed. Sir? Ryan asked, his voice shaking. You have a new challenge, Cadet Stone, Vrel said. You did not just make an enemy. You have just earned the respect of a Cathari warrior. And their respect is far more dangerous than their mockery. The next day, the entire academy was in the primary combat arena. The news had spread like fire. The soft-skinned human had injured Centurion Xyla. Now Xyla had issued a formal challenge. It was not a joke this time. It was a Xyvril, a Cathari duel of honor. Ryan stood at one end of the padded sparring mat. He wore the standard light contact training gear. It felt thin and useless. He was still aching from the medical bay. At the other end, Xyla stretched. She was all business. Her yellow eyes were sharp and focused. She was a predator, and this was her hunting ground. The entire class, including the Grom and Professor Vrel, watched from the stands. The rules of the Xyvril are simple. Professor Vrel's voice boomed over the speakers. The fight ends by submission or by knockout. This is a test of skill, not a brawl. Begin. Xyla did not rush him. She stalked him. She circled him, low to the ground, her movements fluid and deadly. I am not a bench, little human. I am a warrior. Show it to me. Show me that thing again. I don't want to fight you, Xyla, Ryan said, his hands up in a clumsy defensive pose. That is a pity, she purred, and lunged. She was too fast. He did not even see the kick. His legs were swept out from under him, and he hit the mat hard. Before he could breathe, she was on him. But this time, it was different. She was not pinning him to laugh. She was applying a joint lock to his arm. It was pure technical skill. Pain, sharp and bright, shot up Ryan's shoulder. He yelled and tapped the mat with his other hand. Submit! I submit! Xyla instantly let go. She stood up and walked back to her starting position. Get up! Ryan got to his feet, rubbing his arm. The crowd was silent. This was not a fight. It was an execution. Begin! Vrel called again. Ryan tried to move, but Xyla was a master. She feinted a punch, and when Ryan flinched, she was behind him. She wrapped her arm around his neck in a perfect chokehold. Ryan's world went dark at the edges. He felt the panic rising. He was trapped. He was being held down. Show it to me, human. Xyla hissed in his ear. Show me the bomb. Or will you just go to sleep? The panic was climbing. He could not breathe. He was helpless. The same feeling from the mess hall. Trapped, trapped. His heart began to hammer. Thump, thump, thump. The adrenaline began to flood his system. He felt the chemical fire ignite. He felt the shaking start in his legs. The low growl rumbled in his chest. Xyla felt it too. The body in her arms suddenly became rigid like steel. Yes, she whispered. There it is. Fight me. Ryan's vision went red. The world dissolved into pure, primal instinct. He was no longer a cadet. He was an animal, With a scream that was not human, he exploded. He did not use skill. He used force. He grabbed her arm, and with the full desperate power of his hysterical strength, he tore her grip away. He twisted in her hold, his elbow catching her in the ribs with a loud crack. Xyla grunted in pain and stumbled back, clutching her side. She had a broken rib. The entire arena gasped. The human had done it again. Ryan was on his feet. He was in the crouch, his hands clawed. He was growling, his eyes wide and blank. He was ready to kill. Xyla smiled, a true warrior's smile, full of sharp teeth. Now we fight. She got into her own stance, ignoring the pain in her side. This was it. This was the test. She waited for him to charge. But Ryan did not charge. He stood there, his entire body trembling. He was fighting. But he was not fighting her. He was fighting himself. His blank eyes flickered. He saw Xyla. He saw the arena. He saw his own bloody hands. No. He roared. He squeezed his eyes shut. He was using every bit of his will. He was fighting an enemy inside his own blood, an enemy that had saved his ancestors for 1,000,000 years. He was fighting his own primal rage. The growling stopped. The shaking slowed. He forced his hands to unclench, one trembling finger at a time. He stood up straight, his chest heaving. He was covered in sweat. He was in agony. But his eyes were clear. They were his again. He looked at Xyla. He was still in danger. She was still a predator, and he lowered his hands. I will not, he panted, his voice hoarse. I am not an animal. I submit. He had won the physical battle. He had broken her hold. He had broken her rib. He had the bomb in his hands. And he refused to use it. He chose to lose. Xyla stared. Her warrior brain could not understand. He had the advantage. He had the power. And he stopped. He surrendered. She looked at this small, soft human who was shaking from the effort of not fighting. She looked at his eyes, which were no longer primal, but were filled with a terrible, civilized strength. She finally understood that the adrenaline was not the human's real weapon. The primal rage was not their true power. This was the will to control it. The strength to tell an instinct 1,000,000 years old to stand down. Her Cathari culture was about using strength. His human culture was about mastering it. Slowly, Xyla relaxed her stance. The duel was over. She walked over to Ryan, who looked ready to collapse. She stood in front of him, her yellow eyes looking at him in a way no one had ever seen. There was no mockery. There was no challenge. There was only awe. The joke was on me, she said, her voice quiet. I thought your power was that primal rage. But that is just a reflex. She tapped her finger on his chest right over his heart. Your true strength is the will that cages it. HFY. She turned to the stunned crowd and Professor Vrel. The human wins. I submit. She then turned back to Ryan and offered him her hand, the same way a human would. My name is Xyla, she said. It is an honor to meet you. What did you think of Xyla's big mistake? Comment below and like this video if you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to subscribe for your next HFY adventure.